and welcome back to the NACL Open Qualifiers. My name is Lindor, here with Orion, and today we continue to track Lotus's run through the Open Qualifiers. Draft for game number one on our screens already. We're jumping right into the action, but Orion, both of these teams undefeated up to this point. That's 4 rounds of the Open Qualifiers that they have successfully made it through with wins. This is round number 5. The winner of this round secures their spot in the qualifying tournament for the North American Challenger Series Summer Split, and the loser will have to go down to the lower bracket and win another game if they hope to make it through. But Ezreal is the first pick, and we are in here for game number 1.
Yeah, I think obviously kind of talking about draft here. I think Lotus did a good job recognizing that Bus Drivers is using a sub 80 carry, so targeting 2 of his more priority champions. But it is going to be very obvious that they picked Ezra going in early, and similar to with Lotus as well. Bus Drivers recognize that Fire is one of the ones that's been doing predominantly a lot of the early game things for Lotus, and they banned away his 2 the champions he's had a lot of success on in this tournament in the Pantheon in the Nocturne. But Fire able to get his hands on the champion like Xin Zhao that he's already played several times in this tournament already. The Vayne is something that's a little interesting to me. It's a little early in the draft. Typically, you don't see Vayne this early. But it is a flexible champ. It's been good top lane and AD carry fairly recently, so kind of curious to see how that one ends up going.
Yeah, it can be a potential flex pick. We have seen Lotus take some ranged top laners up there on occasion. Not typically the way they like to play. We also saw Shogu on the Vayne last week, so we'll have to see where that one does go. Also, both the Vayne and the Xin Zhao are kind of picks away from Bus Drivers. They played both of those champions as well last week, so they're not going to be able to have those champs on their side either. Sion and Hui on the other side, probably some solo lane lock-ins. Is there a potential for this Hui to go support Orion?
I guess there's always the possibility. They didn't necessarily play a ton in early on in the tournament, so I would be surprised. But like you said, it is very flexible. I am kind of curious with this Vayne though, because Vayne is typically a champion that is actually really good into a champion like Sion. So maybe they're feeling with looking at Gygar's like type of champion composition in solo queue. Maybe they're saying, okay, this is for sure going in the hands of Shogu since we've already kind of seen him play it. So we feel confident picking the Sion pick. But it's also one of those things where if Vayne does go into the Sion's going to have a really hard time in that top lane.
Yeah, the Condemn just cancels out the Scion Q. Obviously, the range advantage is really huge, and the Scion can't really close the distance or space that really very effectively. Victor, the final lock-in for Lotus, so going to get their mid laner early on in this draft. And second phase of bans, looks like Lotus want to try and pinch that jungle pool a little bit. Kha'Zix taken off the table. A little bit of an interesting ban. I wonder if that's a pocket pick for the Bus Drivers jungler there.
Yeah, I'm looking at obviously going through these solo queues a little bit. Don't necessarily see a ton of that available. Actually, there is quite a bit of Kha'Zix games. There's 60 games already played this season, sitting around a
Okay.
50% win rate. So it is definitely one of those champions that can kind of cause some problems for their composition because you've got 3 champions that want to kind of play together. But if Kha'Zix is able to isolate some of them, then he can cause a lot of problems in these team fights to come. Same with a champion like Talon that can also be very similar to kind of causing those problems. For the set of Bus Drivers, though, prioritizing a lot of those support picks that could be solid pairings for the Vayne as possibilities. But if I would imagine if they were curious about keeping the flex open for Lotus, you'd obviously pick your support champion here. That way you have the ability to kind of send that Vayne top or ADC. But if they don't necessarily want to do that, then they will obviously end up picking up their solid top winner here, which, like I was saying with Gygar, he's not someone that has a lot of those range champions in his kit. So, gonna go ahead and pick up that Kled here, which can obviously still be very good into champion like the Scion. It has the same roaming potential with his ultimate, as well as just being able to outright lane better than the Scion can.
Yeah, definitely a good lane matchup for the Kled. It also helps enable the Xin Zhao a little bit as well. The Kled can run in and the Xin Zhao can follow up. Sometimes the Xin Zhao can struggle to gap close a little bit, especially if they miss the W for the extra range on the
Ooh, fair.
audacious charge. So then Kled can hopefully help shore up a little bit of the weaknesses of the Xin Zhao. Nefiri on the other side, okay, yeah, we saw some jungle assassin bans. They're just going to pick up a different jungle assassin in the Nefiri. It won't be the Kha'Zix or the Talon, but this is something we've seen quite a lot of. That dog is very strong these days, Orion.
Yeah, she's got a lot of like the new voltaic changes. The fact that she gets the extra lethality and the extra damage when she hits someone's very nice with the slow to kind of come through. And honestly, a lot of the lethality items are kind of just in really good spots for those jungle champions, like we were saying. And also, and here we go. that Ziggs is locked in. So
Interesting.
okay, we will have to wait and see where these champions do end up going. I was just talking to Lindor a little bit before this draft started. Bus drivers' compositions when they draft are always very unique. To put it simply, they oftentimes will draft 280 carries in their compositions. They'll pick multiple mages to kind of come through. So, like you were saying earlier, it is going to have to end up being most likely the Hui going down into that support position with either the
Yeah.
Ezreal or the Ziggs going to be down there in that bot side as well. Typically, Vayne actually struggles into mage champions because she gets outranged, she gets outpoked.
Yep.
It's really hard for her to lane. So, if bus drivers wanted to get super fancy, they could actually end up throwing that Ezreal into a solo lane by himself and actually have Hui and Ziggs out there by themselves to kind of really mess with this Vayne. I would imagine it's going to actually probably be Ziggs in the mid lane, though, just to kind of keep it staple. Like we were saying, Kita is a predominantly 80 carry playing champion. He doesn't actually have a ton of those mates in the kit because he is their sub playing for them today, but we'll have to wait and see until we get everything finalized.
Yeah, like you say, we do expect a little bit more of a traditional AD carry, so the Ezreal most likely to go down there. We are getting word from our producer that it is going to be the Ziggs in the mid lane, so going up against the Victor there for the Yordle with the bombs, and then the Ezreal and the Hui still going to have a significant range advantage against
Yeah.
this Vayne, still have the Hui to kind of take advantage of some of that like you're talking about, Orion. The Melio is the last pick for Lotus, obviously something similar to the Nami and the Lulu that we saw banned away, an enchanter that can enable the Vayne, give her a little bit of extra range in this matchup, which might help a little bit, but I feel
Mhm.
like the double range of Ezreal Hui is just such a threat. I think Shogu is definitely going to be on the back foot for most of that laning phase.
Yeah, especially early. Now, once she's able to get level 6 and she has access to Final Hour to get a kind of invisible, be a little bit faster, kind of have that chase down potential, that's when she can actually kind of become a threat. But those first 5 to 6 minutes of this game are going to be fairly troublesome. So that kind of leads me into talking about where these junglers are most likely pathing towards. I would imagine with a Kled Scion top lane, a lot of that action won't actually happen up there. It's going to be probably navigating mostly towards the bottom side of the map. You've got champions like Neferi, like Xinxiao, that can be fairly aggressive. They're fairly good duelists that can actually make things happen early. So getting that extra push early on the lane to decide who actually gets those scuttle crabs is going to be fairly important for the first couple times around the rift.
Yeah, if the junglers are pathing towards the same side, definitely might see some early game scuffling around those scuttle crabs. We'll have to see which junglers can get the better of that. For Lotus, like Schernfire has been the jungler that has kind of ignored the bot side, right? Like we haven't seen a lot of action going down there. We've had similar drafts to this where we kind of expected the action to be around bot side, but it seems like Lotus are just so confident in their ability to play from a slight deficit that Schernfire is more confident just kind of playing for himself, getting farm
Yeah.
leads, getting ganks off when there's obvious opportunities and he really thinks he can capitalize on a play. But for the most part, kind of just waits his time out. They're really, really confident in their mid game team fighting ability, and if they can get to the mid game at an even state or just a little bit behind, it feels like Lotus have had the hands and the brain, the knowledge to really get those mid game team fights going in their favor. Bus Drivers is a tougher opponent, or one of the more tough opponents that they've seen. In the last round of Open Qualifiers, Bus Drivers actually ended up beating the #1 seed in the entire tournament 2-1. So we'll see if that's a different story here for Lotus, but I think the players, Orion, are going to be feeling confident in their abilities for sure.
Yeah, I think exactly what you were saying is pretty important. Most of Lotus's early games have been fairly weak, I would say, to put it nicely. They typically fallen behind early, had some pretty poor gold leads, but they've also been able to maintain relative like closeness within the game because they've been a good job, establishing that, able to kind of continue pushing side lanes, kind of controlling the map state fairly well. So it's been fairly beneficial for them in a lot of these games. But like you were saying, if you do end up falling behind early on in the game against a team that is closer to your skill level, if not, like you said, have already beaten the #1 seed in this tournament, like if you fall behind that early, then all of a sudden, like it can be kind of hard to get your way back into the game if the other team's not making the same mistakes as we've seen Lotus' opponents make in the past. So kind of curious to see how this ends up playing out. I know they've had longer time to develop. They've been playing more together because deeper into the tournament. So both these teams, like you said, should be feeling relatively confident at the current state of the game. Lotus themselves having to not even drop a single game so far. Bus Drivers did drop a single game. to that number one seed, but overall ended up winning the series. So both these teams, I feel like in terms of looking at their compositions, do feel fairly confident in terms of what their front to back enables them to do. I think obviously the Wombo combo of bus drivers compositions we see kind of in front of us is very deadly. You've got Scion over the top with an Ezreal ult and a Ziggs bomb. You've got all these abilities that can be casted from fairly long range. And for a champion like Vayne in this game, in the hands of Shogu, he's going to have to play these team fights fairly meticulously, right? He can't just go head first into an Inferi or a Scion and get hit by some of their CC, and all of a sudden you just get layered over the top by the Ziggs, by the Ezreal, right? It's going to be a lot about Guard, Shurnfire, getting into that backline, causing a lot of havoc onto the less mobile of the carries, allowing Shogu to kind of really take it over in a lot of these team fights.
Well, we'll see if those teams can execute the game plan and get a win here in game number one. Lots on the line for this series. We're going to take a short break while the teams load on the Rift, but we'll be back with game number one. We'll see you there. Welcome to Summoner's Rift, everybody, for some League of Legends. We got game one between Bus Drivers and Lotus on your screen. A little bit of some level 1 trading happening. Orion, anything standing out to you in terms of summoner spells or rune choices here across both squads?
I mean, everything looks pretty standard. I mean, obviously there's a couple of times where Way maybe takes DFT, but overall, nothing too crazy. You see a pretty aggressive trade here as actually pretty good scuffle happening.
Yeah, Sugar does pop the ghost. Trades back and forth with all of these autos. Make sure getting a little bit low here. Has already burned the heal. On the other side, Kalmeyer burnt the heal as well. So small summoner spell advantage. Barrier still up for Kita. Shogo's in trouble. There's the barrier coming through, and yeah, that's going to be a dead vein. Level 1 first blood for Bus Drivers.
Yeah, and Ezreal is one of those champions too that does have the empowered passive, right? To be able to actually make sure he gets a very extra attack speed. So having that lethal tempo means that they're actually able to take the very aggressive trade. And we kind of talked about Lotus being a slower team to kind of start the game out, but so far, I mean, this is a little extra, I would say.
That was definitely Shogo looking for the level 1 aggressive trades, walking forward. Didn't unfortunately see Kalmeyer kind of in the pocket of vision behind the wall there and was a bit surprised. Popped the ghost, still gets taken out, so first blood gold on the Ezreal. They are going to recall now, probably just to pick up that tier. And get that mana scaling early on in this matchup. Orion, jungler is pathing opposite directions here. It's X1 heading towards the top side on the Nefiri. Surenfire pathing towards his bot side. Did get spotted there on a ward in the Raptor pit that just expired. So Bus Drivers are aware of where the Xinjiao is heading.
Yeah, and I'm not entirely sure if Nefiri was spotted, but at least they should generally have an idea, kind of considering that even if they don't necessarily know, that they should be able to kind of be safe around. It's usually that 2:45 to 3-minute marker, regardless of where junglers are. That's usually when most junglers are kind of finishing their camps. So as you can see, Gygar's wave is currently in a pretty awkward position. For the most part, he is, it's one of those situations where he doesn't actually have the ward placed yet, but his wave is not in a great spot. But thankfully for him, it does look like it should be kind of bouncing out, so he should be relatively fine. I would imagine that X1 probably going to be playing for that top Scuttle Crab. As you do see on the minimap, there was a question mark being placed right immediately on there. So Surenfire basically telling his team, hey, I'm on bottom Scuttle Crab. Enemy jungler's not here, therefore he should be up on that top Scuttle Crab, just basically due to figuring out where he could not be.
Yeah, I think that they might have thought that X1 was heading towards bot side. I'm basing that just on where Reppy placed his ward there, placing it on the bot side of mid. But yeah, like you said, the Coach Fire says, okay, he's not contesting me for this Scuttle Crab. I don't see him anywhere. Heads up top lane, and like you said, Gygar has been able to get the wave in a much better spot here. So neither jungler able to impact the map. It is going to be Surenfire on the quick reset. Maybe looking for a way into the top side. Is going to be spotted out on the ward in the river, but Gygar's flashing forward, looking for the bear trap on a rope. Is going to land it, but I think that We Tried to Run is doing exactly that, and will do it successfully this time. So no gank to be had there for Surenfire and Lotus on the top side.
Yeah, exactly what I was saying there in terms of the possibility for junglers to be possibly looking for ganks. So We Tried to Run, did a good job placing that early ward to make sure that nothing too crazy is going to come of it. Of course, using your flash is kind of a big deal, but when you're a Scion and you're trying to just be super duper tanky in this game, all he really needs to do is just survive early on, making sure that Cled's not able to get such a big lead, as we do see a pretty major wave crashing down here on the bottom side. We do see Mixture not quite actually there to receive any of this XP, so Shogo will actually get a sizable advantage in terms of that XP category, with him being completely by himself down here. But overall, we kind of expected this early game to kind of go this way. Besides that early level 1 kill, I mean, no one ever expects to die level 1. But, you know, it is one of those things where we kind of expected these lanes to play out this way. Scion looking to get a bit of a proxy happening here, but Gygar doing a nice job making sure he's not actually allowed to get him. He can possibly... Ooh, unlucky for missing that bear trap in a rope. I was going to say he could possibly chase him down here since he's not level 6 yet. But, you know, we do see Sternfire possibly looking to play for this Hextech Dragon. We do see X1 is up on that top side of the map doing that Gromp. So instead, just going to place Control Ward, possibly looking for the ability to kind of start this up. We do see mid-wave being pushed in, but Shoko is actually basing. So if there were to be a potential contest here by bus drivers, they could actually make their way over here simply due to the fact that Shoko's not here.
Yeah, they do start up the Dragon. Reppy had priority in the mid lane, at least for a moment, but is now starting to get pushed off the wave, or at least contested by Mohano on the Ziggs. And like you said, with Shogo going back to lane, bus drivers are able to take space in the river. They're going to clear out the vision. May even look to start it up themselves. Geiger in the top lane did use the teleport to get back to lane, so neither top laner should be able to join in a fight, but it looks like both teams just going to kind of leave. The Scuttle Crab does go over to bus drivers. That's the big objective gained in this go.
Yeah, one of the nice things about having your top laners be champions like Kled, like Scion, is that they don't necessarily have to have their teleport to really join these possible fights in the future. They have access to their global ultimates that can really make sure that they kind of get into these fights. So it's nice to have access to these types of champions, even though, like, you know, they're still able to kind of join these fights. But really, I think for bus drivers, I think they did a really good job making sure that that dragon wasn't able to be taken. I know they themselves would like to have it, but with their waves, when the dragon was currently being contested, they didn't really necessarily have their waves in great spots to really need to do the dragon necessarily. So but it is one of those things where I think that, you know, with Nefiri pathing back up to the top side, kind of clearing a lot of her camps, it could be a possibility that Grubs actually may be the first major deck to contest, which you see Ziggs is possibly looking for a roam down here to the bottom side. He does have access to his ultimate. Bot lane's looking very low.
Shogo gets shielded, also dodges out of the way.
Fury's coming down here too.
Inferno Bomb, but yeah,
Oh,
Kalmar just walks around. He says, you're not going to be able to run away. You're going to have to stay here. True Shot Barrage goes wide. X1 over the wall. Power Shot gets taken up by the dog, but Shogu's just gonna get Mystic shotted down. Mixture now in a world of hurt as well. The turret claims a kill, but it's only gonna be the execution as Reppy is gonna be not in a great spot here. Actually, Mohana's gonna cut off Shrimpfire, and the Lotus mid laner is gonna be the next to fall. Kita's on a rampage. It's a 4-0 Ezreal, and 7.5 minutes into the game, it's been all about the bus driver spot lane.
Yeah, and they're going to end up starting up this dragon here, so fantastic start for the bus drivers. And we kind of talked about this lane being very troublesome here down on the bump side of the map. We're going to see a replay build up here. We're going to see these bot laners getting heavily pushed in and under threat. We see the Ziggs bomb to cancel Shogo's ultimate. And I don't know if coming here knew exactly where the Zinzia was, but he's like, hey, I can actually get behind and really prevent them from going any further forward. And we're going to see Kita doing a nice little snipe here onto Shogo as he's going to dash forward here. Going to land that Mystic shot. Nice shot there. We do see coming here, actually able to tank up this turret to make sure that X1 is able to kind of get out scot-free. So even able to get a possible, you know, basically the turret able to kind of kill him there. And X1 able to use the second part of Nefiri's ultimate to pick up a kill there onto Reppy as well. 4 kills this early on to a champion like Ezreal to possibly get him even more accelerated into the mid game. It's going to be ginormous for the bus drivers.
It's a 2k gold lead for bus drivers already as we take a look at the gold score here. Just the bot lane lead is, what, 1,400 gold just about? So yeah, Shogu not in a great spot. The Vayne does have scaling prowess like we were talking about. Lotus are very confident in their mid and their late game team fighting. But a deficit like this is pretty tough to overcome. We'll have to see if they can try to stabilize here. Shrimpfire going to look aggressive onto X1. But the Fury very slippery, just able to kind of slip on out of that one. And ping's going down onto these Rift Grubs. I don't know if Shrimpfire wants to go for that. They do have priority top lane. They did see the Nefiri back away. Looks like he will start
Yeah, the slight issue I have with them possibly doing these grubs though is you can kind of see by the attention that's being held on the bot side that these guys are definitely continuously getting pushed underneath their tower. So the rinse and repeat possibility of another dive down here can always be a very large threat. I think Shogo and Mixture are doing a very good job of kind of keeping themselves healthy enough that they're not currently under a lot of threat, but Nefiri is down here again with her ultimate up and available. Mohano does have TP up and ready to possibly use if he needs to, but Reppy is already on his way down here. But Sternfire looking to do a dive on the top lane.
Sternfire looking for the Scion, pulls him back, gets him with the wind becomes lightning. Teleport coming in here from Mohana, but it's going to be too late to impact this play at all. It's the first kill for Lotus on the board, and it looks like Mr. and Shogo, at least for the time being, have been able to dissuade any sort of dive. Another wave crashing here. Shogo eats a Mystic Shot. Gonna eat a ton of damage from the Ezreal here as well. Heal from Mixture, but TP behind. Okay, Geiger maybe wants to try and make a play. He is spotted out. Has the ultimate available here for the Kled. Just going to rush right on in. Teleport to follow here on the other side, but it's going to be a little bit wild before he gets here. Kita's going to be the target. Geiger just going to chase him down himself. Gets the shutdown. We tried to run. Shows up into the fray, but Geiger just says, hey, guys, I don't even need any help. I'm going to get this shutdown gold. My TP and my ult will be worth it. Just trust, and he does exactly that.
Yeah, honestly, that was fantastic there by Lotus on both ends of the spectrum. Able to get a successful dive off up on the top lane. We're going to see Geigar actually going to use his tank hit up first because he's able to use a Scarl to de-aggro from the tower after Scion is able to dying here. So even though they're underneath the tower, the turret no longer is able to hit them, so are able to secure that kill there, even with the TP from the Ziggs up on the top side. And then all of a sudden, you see the lead that Kled has up on the top side, able to transfer it down here. And I said, you know, I didn't really like the fact that they were going for that top lane, but able to use the Summoner spell from Geigar, able to make sure to kind of help his bot lane here in terms of getting them back into this game. So big shutdown here for Geigar, I believe. Something like, yeah, almost 700 gold into his pocket there, and able to get Scion's TP out of that play as well. So all of a sudden, you know, we were talking about Lotus being a bit troublesome here, not obviously doing like in terms of the gold advantages, they're able to kind of try to get back in the bot lane, but it is one of those things that, you know, able to use the lead they got in the top side to get to secure a bot side lead, or a bot side stabilization, I should say.
Yeah, this is kind of what they were hoping, Orion, with the Kled pick in the top side, right? The counter matchup into the Scion has the ultimate to make plays around the map, and so Geiger able to bail the team out, and that's really what I've enjoyed about Lotus in the short while that we've watched them, Orion, is you don't really know where the, like, carry threat is going to come from. They've got every single player on this team can make plays when the time comes, and they're confident in their own ability and their own sight of the game and their own feeling of what's going to happen and how they can really make that impact. This time it's Geiger finding a teleport, finding a play to get them back into the game just a little bit and try to stabilize this bot lane. But we've seen it come from every single member of Lotus, as both the mid lane and the jungler here hovering towards the bot side. Dragon spawning in 5 or so seconds, so both teams are going to have their attention on that area.
Yeah, and we're kind of starting to see Kled in this top lane matchup against the Scion really kind of start having his way. With the fact that he has the Titanic Hydra, he has that extra wave clear. Shogo looking for a possible fight.
Pops Ghost, pops the final hour, but X1 just walks into the lane.
Look
and
like
here, 3v2, mid lane, Surefire's wrapping around on Mohana. The Mega Inferno Bomb is going to be thrown down. Surefire just barely lives. Oh, the Triumph heal to keep him up as well. The dive is successful in the mid lane. Meanwhile, on the bot side, Shogo and Mixture are going to be safe. X1 trying to look for a roam for the counterplay in the mid lane, but he's too late. The rest of Lotus have already evacuated, and they find another play.
Yeah, another successful play, like we were talking about, you know, able to defend their own bottom play by being a little bit aggressive, as well as successfully getting the mid lane kill here. We see Reppy being able to push the mid wave in here. Sternfire able to kind of get on top of Mohana. He does have flash up and available, but Sternfire able to kind of, with the slow, still be able to kind of stay within arm's reach and just barely able to survive there. Obviously, the Triumph over the top was just kind of the extra little cup of tea there that he really needed to make sure that he was going to stay alive, but, you know, unfortunately not quite able to make that into a 1-for-1, and all of a sudden, with a couple of plays here and there from Lotus, you know, being down 2,000 in that goldie department, all of a sudden they're right back into things.
Absolutely, just like we've seen from Lotus across both days last weekend. A little early game deficit is nothing that they shirk at. They still are able to find the plays when they are in an advantageous spot, and they find their moments well. It's going to be Surenfire onto the Dragon here. He feels confident in the fact that he has push in the mid lane here with Reppy on the Victor, has his bot lane roaming up as well, and they've got another dive into the mid lane. Geiger just looking to charge right under there. The Ziggs doesn't have flash, and the Ziggs no longer has a life. It's Geiger again, Orion, finding her own.
Yeah, it's a great punish. We recognize that these mid laners are, no, sorry, these top laners are able to have access onto the map even without a teleport being used. And really, all that was just sacrificing away from Geigar, able to make the movement down into the mid lane and really kind of punish this flashless Ziggs. That very last play, they were able to burn that summoner spell and then able to obviously, you know, pick up the kill henceforth afterwards. And really, this bot lane's getting a lot of trouble. But a 5 bot lane.
Final hour is going to be having him go forward, but there's just way too much threat on the other side. X1, it feels like he's always here, and he'll follow up the kill on Shogu with another onto Mixture. 2 for 0 in the bot side as Lotus tries to get aggressive and gets punished for their efforts.
Surenfire, though, possibly looking for a punish on the top side. This Sion does have flash and ultimate if they need to get behind him here.
Oh,
he couldn't quite get behind him.
The dash is not gonna be enough, as okay, Reppy's just gonna say, alright, I know where everyone is, and I know how to kill a Ziggs. He'll do exactly that, picks up his second of the game.
Yeah, Mahano's starting to fall even further behind here. This mid lane tower might actually end up falling here, but I think we are possibly going to get a replay, but there's a lot of action happening here on this map at one time. As we do see, yep, so here's that mid lane roam onto Mohano. It's the ultimate over the top. The slow from Victor's W, just enough to help with the tether range of charge coming through from the Geigar. Able to kind of pick up that kill there. As we're going to see, this is that bot lane 2v2 we saw. We're going to go for the initial play, but we're going to see X1 going to come up around the corner here to really make sure this is...
base.
Yeah, exactly.
I
I think he recognized that they were in a bit of a vulnerable position, and honestly, it was really close. Kida drops down to, without that barrier, he actually may have ended up falling in a 1 for 2 there. But great job by X1, able to make sure he's able to really help out his team. And this is that dive we're talking about with Sion. Unfortunately,
Picture at live though.
Yeah,
going down. It's going to be Geiger into the backside here in the picture-to-picture, looking for the dive into the backside of the team fight. They do pick up the Nefiri. There's one. The rest of the team here for bus drivers trying to drive the bus out of here. They picked up the Rift Arrow. That's a big stun. Surenfire wants to follow it up. He's got the ultimate to try and keep himself alive, but it's going to be the Sion ultimate back onto him. He flashes away from the knockup. Mega Inferno Bomb is going to be in, but it's going to be healed for Mixture, keeping Surenfire alive. 1 for 0, all said and done. The objective did go to bus drivers, but they pay for it with 1 life.
Yeah, I thought for a slight moment there that Surenfire was going to be able to fall down, but the ultimate there, able to block so much of that over-the-top damage and really kind of able to keep him alive. Fortunately for Lotus, they were able to at least pick up 1 there onto Hexwan, but so many low health members on both teams there. That could have been a ginormous swing coming through for either of these teams. They were able to pick up these kills there, but we're starting to see structures fall across the map here for the bus drivers. Tier 1 tower obviously being dead, and mid-tier 1 tower. That's going to allow Lotus to really start pushing their vision line a lot deeper. And it's actually going to allow the Kled and the Xin Zhao from Geigar and Surenfire to really start having a lot of threats on this map. The further you can get your waves pushed in and really start being able to have these roam plays, these champions like Hui, like Ziggs, they like to have the protection of the tower in terms of them able to be that artillery mage that they really need to be. But it's one of those things where it's going to be very hard if these tier 1 towers do end up falling, that they won't actually have that safety net of a protection anymore.
Looking for just a straight chase down onto Sion. They are going to get him with the tower dive. Skarl's going to be thrown away. Geiger has to flash over the wall to get away, but now mid lane could be action here as well. Rift summoned up, Surenfire into the fray, trying to look to defend some space. Maybe just looking to engage onto Kalmire. He says, this is a support with no flash. We might be able to take him out. Can't quite do so. The heal will keep Kalmire alive, at least for now. Teleport coming in. Coachfire just dashes forward and takes out of the health bar. Shogo trying to buy time for Geiger to get here, but ultimately, bus drivers barely able to get under the safety of their tier 2 tower, but it's 2 for 0 in the cross-map play.
As well as with the Sion being dead in the bot side as well, able to pick up that tier 1 tower. All 3 tier 1 towers are dead, unfortunately for them, so they won't quite really be able to do anything here. But We're gonna look and see if we can possibly get a replay going here, as we do see. Yep, this is that Rick Herald fight. We missed the initial fight here. Geigar actually able to get on the back line here, Farta X1, and able to just absolutely blast him with a Titanic Hydra and that 4th empowered auto attack from that W. But it is one of those things where I think that the ability to survive this back end of the fight was so important for bus drivers. You're going to see so many low health bars able to get back there. And really, even Schernfire with his ultimate, I think maybe if that initial ultimate was not quite running, he also probably would have ended up dying in the process. But Schernfire, having access to his ultimate, was able to really make sure to kind of keep him alive in this situation. We do see Lotus currently taking on the dragon here. There's probably not going to be so much of a contest, just considering that Neferi is on the top side of the map, so it will end up being the second dragon of the game to Lotus.
Dragon for Lotus, and we can take another replay here at the follow-up play from Geiger here in the bot side. They just know that Reppy is coming to shadow this lane, and they just go, yeah, we just chase him to the ends of the earth. And they do exactly that.
Yeah, able to chase him down using the second part of the E from Geigar there to make sure that he's able to kind of stay connected to him. And then we noticed that the bus drivers tried to make a punish here onto the bot lane of Shogo and Mixture, but they didn't end up pathing their dodge away from that Huey ultimate. And Schernfire recognizing that, hey, if this is a 4v3, I can get my Q prepped here. That way I can dash onto this way, making sure we can possibly look for this kill here. And really, anytime Jin Zhao has an enchanter like Emilio, like Lulu or Seraphine or whatever, that can just really empower him to do a lot of havoc in these fights, he can absolutely pop off these fights. But yeah, back to live.
Teleport coming in, Schernfire in the fray. This was initially just a play on Sion, but both teams converging now into the area. Schernfire in the front lines, the ultimate is going to expire, now it's to back away. No one has fallen yet in the fight, with summoner spells and ultimates thrown out left and right.
Yeah, lots of abilities there for basically a nothing burner. I think they tried to really make a lot of pressure there onto that tier 2 tower in the top lane.
Shogo! That's not a very safe push to be recalling in. There is a ward in there, you have no team, and he's dead.
Yeah, and the Baron is alive as well, and it does look like Bus Drivers is possibly posturing over here to it. The rest of Lotus is kind of converging on the spot. It's going to be kind of a hard Baron to possibly start up here. There's a lot of range, a lot of ability to fight.
Schernfire just goes forward. Doesn't have ultimate here on the Xin Zhao, dodges away from some of the damage. Shot barrage, we tried to run now, entering the fight from the bot side. Reppy in the front line's taking a lot of damage, going to get knocked up there by the charge, has to flash away from the damage from the Huey. Schernfire now about
Sion's looking.
Quarter HP. Here comes the ultimate. Unstoppable onslaught. Oh, Coach Fire barely survives as Geiger tries to buy space for his jungler. Won't be able to do so. As Schernfire goes down, now Geiger might be in trouble. Pops the Scarl, gets knocked up, and the chase down is coming through from Bus Drivers. Geiger's living so long. He's going to get the remount. Can they turn it around? The Sion's the target. They turn it, and they get one back. Shogo into the final hour, has to evacuate as Cheetah goes forward with the arcane shift, but it's a 1-for-1 jungler for top laner.
Oh wow, hectic fight as can be there in that situation. Mahana trying to look for his ultimate over the top there. Geigar falling desperately low on the back end, but wasn't quite able to pick up that kill here. I do believe that, hopefully we'll be getting a replay of that fight at some point, as we do see. It was very, very chaotic. There was the initial pick there onto Shoko, who was trying to base, like you said, in a bush that was warded up, so had complete vision of him. And that's kind of what I was saying, where the ability to go over the top with a lot of their abilities, like the Huey, the Ziggs, the Ezreal, they can really pose a big threat there as possibilities. So I'm sure at some point we'll probably get that one to come through. But the chase down really from Bus Drivers, they were worried about the potential threat of the Victor, the amount of range that he possibly has in terms of them actually starting up the Baron as well. So tried looking for the fight, but the remounts at the very, very end from Geigar, able to really honestly, satisfy the fight for Lotus. I think that was a very dangerous situation. Schernfire ended up dying as well. So if Geigar wasn't actually able to do that, I think that would have been very troublesome
Taking
for
the Baron here,
Lotus, but
Orion.
yeah, Sternfire is starting at the Baron. There's some knowledge. It looks like TP is coming in from the Scion. They have full knowledge.
They are
This is a
spotted.
gigantic
Might
fight.
just be the bait. Geiger's on to Kita. Kita's got to try to get away, but the bear trap on the rope is going to connect. They blow up the front line. Kalmeyer's dead. Geiger is going to die in the backside, but has he got enough time for the team? Joe goes into the back. He's into the final hour, but he's all alone. The rest of the team has to evacuate as X1 goes crazy. Sternfire still alive. Reppy trying to do what he can on the Victor. Knock up the stun, but the rest of the team will reconvene for bus drivers, and they will claim the fight. It's a 4-for-1. And they think they might be able to take the Baron themselves.
Yeah, Reppy's too low. He can't really posture for the DDS. He doesn't have the TP available either. So I think for Lotus, I think they may have to give this one up. The rest of the members are trying to, the respawn timers are not going to be here in time. And yeah, it's just going to be a full-on Baron here for the side of bus drivers. Here we go. Yeah, so this is that replay we were talking about here. So Shogo basing on that, where it's kind of funny. The rest of his team are basing on that, where there is actually a control board.
Yeah,
He's the only one not actually trying to do that. So
lazy Shogo.
yeah. So, but yeah, here's gonna be the Baron obviously being taken by the bus drivers, clearing out a lot of that vision, and we see Sternfire just trying to make a lot of space for his team. Gonna take a lot of initial damage. Does not quite have access to the ultimate available. So the rest of the bus drivers here are going to be able to actually push in, try to take space, and try to basically do the rest of this fight. But we see huge poke damage there on Reppy being able to reposition here to kind of come through. And then we're going to see, obviously, yeah, so here comes the Scion. I'm surprised Geigar didn't block that initial Scion ultimate. And so actually the reason why Sternfire ends up dying, but Geigar doing his best job as well to try to also create a little bit of space to kind of come through. And then we're going to see a huge, and I say massive remount here back onto the Scarl. Honestly, I thought he was dead in the rights here for the most part.
For so long.
Yeah, but the assistance from the Millia with the healing on top, as well as the ability to have that gigantic Victor stun as well, really able to make sure to have the good posture to make sure that they weren't actually able to really make anything happen there.
Yeah, the big fight Orion followed that one. That Baron was definitely the biggest fight we've seen in game number 1 here, and all said and done, it's bus drivers wearing purple. They've got a little bit of a lead for themselves, about 2,000 gold once again, and while we were in the replay, they picked up the Dragon, so they've equalized the Dragon scores 2 apiece. Sternfire is in a pretty good spot here. They might look for a fight.
Yeah, it does have a pretty good flank. It does have the ability to kind of get on top of him here. Oh, Geigar's ulting in.
From Reppy. Geigar from the side is going to get interrupted by X1, but Coach Fire is going to use his ultimate. They've got the Ezreal. They picked him off. They can get more. They get the support. They get the Ziggs. They've claimed them all. They converge from all sides. And it is Lotus finding their fight.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing there was when Akita got absolutely blasted off the very beginning of that play. Obviously not having flash and the arcane shift, not quite able to gain as much distance, I think, as he would like to have gotten. But like you were saying, Sternfire from the back and Geigar from the side, able to cause just as much of a disruption, because when you have a tank like Scion that does such a good job of creating space right in front of where he is, Geigar doing a great job actually kind of coming from the side there and causing a lot of havoc in that
Oh my
fight.
goodness, X1 maulding. Geiger lives with the support of his team, and he will live to tell the tale.
Man, this Blood Champ is annoying. Let's just put it that way. His voice lines are annoying. His champ's annoying, but hey, it's great for Lotus. But, you know, here we go. So here's some of that Baron replay here as we're going to see Geigar kind of over the top, trying to look on his way over to Kita. We're going to see the initial burst kind of to come through. I think not quite able to kind of pick up the kill, but coming near, not quite able to really make sure he's able to kind of tank up all that damage as he is just a lonely Quay. But we see the initial kill there picked up onto on the Geigar. But yeah, huge CC chain there. Shogo trying to go for a massive 1v3, not quite able to pick it up, and X1 with that Q damage over the top. So much damage there. We're going to see Reppy, unfortunately, not quite able to really win the 1 versus 4 either. So there's just nothing he can really do in the situation. Maybe if he had the teleport, if he's able to kind of teleport back in with a much better health bar and mana bar, there's a possibility with how low the members are of Bus Driver. But still, even though they weren't able to receive that Baron, they were able to kind of basically take the fight immediately afterwards and honestly just completely wipe the floor with the Bus Drivers.
Yeah, there was a huge fight. We'll take a look at that one here as well. I think we have time. I mean, They just knew exactly what they were doing. They
it's just
facing with the Victor, ready to TP in. Schönfire calls out that he's got a good spot, and Geiger hits the Arcade.
yeah, it's just a perfect flank. I think X1 does a good job of actually blocking the initial charge from the Kled, but so you're gonna see a knockback into the wall condemn as well from Shogo. Really well played there to make sure that Ezra just couldn't actually play the game. And you're going to see Victor from Arcane is here with us with a gigantic storm to kind of come through. Honestly, I love the change with what they did from the Victor, just making the ultimate just look absolutely massive. It just looks really cool. But yeah, able to kind of push in some waves there as well. And honestly, this has been a very back and forth game. We kind of expected this though. We saw that both of these teams were fairly competitive with each other in the standings in terms of their elo brackets as well. And this is that play you were talking about with X1, unfortunately, just being a little sad that Geiger having as much health as he does have. Great flash from getting away from the Q2 there to make sure he's able to survive with just enough HP. As we do see a fight happening live in picture with, oh, actually, once again, it's Kled versus the Fury.
Yeah, X1 is going to escape. Geiger not quite able to find his mark that time. Kled 6-1 on the game. It's really been a big difference maker for the team. You can see where the gold leads are. Bot lane, the Ezreal, still with a pretty significant lead, but the solo lanes for Lotus are really where they're making the...
Yeah, and honestly, it's kind of how this game has gone, right? We noticed that the early offensive bot lane was fairly troublesome. Oh, yeah, here we go.
Onto the dogs here as well as a response from the Scion. A little bit of damage there onto Schönfire. It's going to be the Whale coming down as well. Checking out about a third of his HP. Kita's still going forward with the Arcane Chip. Now has to flash out as Schönfire's going to go forward. Now has the ultimate. Geiger on the side looking for the flank onto X1. Kita has to flash over the wall. Shogu over the wall. Going to put a couple of bolts into the side of Kaomai. And now it's Coachfire into the fray. Knocking up the Scion. He's buying so much time for the team. He's soaking all the damage, but he will eventually get burnt down. Dragons on the map 1 for 0. And Lotus will turn their attention towards the objective.
Yeah, honestly, I felt like both these TPs were going to be used to kind of just get in position for this possible dragon fight that was going to end up coming through. But really, it was the initial arcane shift there from Kita that really started us all off. I think, honestly, right here, the initial replay, I was like, okay, nothing's really going to happen. Whale only gets used on Schönfire, but everyone's relatively okay. But ultimately, we're going to see this initial arcane shift there from Kita. All of us was like, all right, everybody's full force. Everyone's trying to posture forward, really playing aggressively. Schönfire able to use that ultimate once again to really kind of play for that early aggressiveness as we see Shogo not really having to worry about any other possible threats to come through as he is able to kind of get a lot of damage into that backline. Commandeer living with just barely any HP kind of to come through, but we tried to run, doing it the best that he possibly can in that front line, but the rest of his members are just way too low in the situation, and the true shot damage coming through from the Vayne as well. Over the top from her piercing bolt, really kind of pick up the kill here. So we do see in picture, we do see Xin Zhao possibly looking to start up this Baron, mostly clearing out a lot of visions that was already placed by bus drivers. But right now, I mean, both of these teams, obviously, you know, Lotus having the third dragon picked up over the top during that replay, making sure they're on Dragon Point. But with the major objective spawning over here being the Baron, both these teams looking to play. Geiger is looking for a potential flank here with his ultimate. He is in a fantastic position.
Fight. Now Schönfire going forward though, big ultimate into the backside, trying to take out Kamar. Kita could be in trouble as well as Geiger goes forward. Lots of damage to the Titanic Hydra, but they're turning it back around with lots of damage on the other side. Blinking health bars. The Chaos Storm's gonna get one, but only one is all it will get. Shogo now again on his own in the front line of this fight. He just flashes the wall. This man doesn't even care. He's gonna get the Ziggs, but nothing more. Baron now will be the target. Schönfire will start it up and wait for the team to reconvene.
Ooh, the safety net of that tier 3 tower, the only thing keeping Kita and X1 alive there from the hands of Shogo. We saw the initial fight happening, obviously, like you said, a very long charge possible range from Geiger, but Schönfire being completely fearless in a lot of these fights with Emilio over the top, making sure he will kind of keep him alive, and all of a sudden Lotus taking a massive charge in this game.
Schönfire just always seems to be in the correct spot. We saw in that big mid lane fight, like, I don't know how he managed to skirt all that vision and just be like unseen in the river before that big fight, you know, maybe 5 or 7 minutes ago. And then same with this one, like they have all of their attention waiting for the Geiger ult. They're like trying to kite upwards, and as they do, Schönfire knows exactly where they're going, and he's there to capitalize and get the engage so his team can close the distance and end up winning the team fight. So Lots of experience on display here from Schernfires.
Yeah.
Again, he's found out X1. Lots of damage coming through from Kalmeyer, though. He doesn't really have the rest of the team. He doesn't get a Quay ultimate burn here as well. Schernfire has to burn the ultimate to keep himself alive. Does dissuade a lot of the damage, but the Mega Inferno Bomb and the burn will finish it off. Geiger now into the backside, looking to turn one back around. He will get Keto once again, but now in the middle of 3, he will pay for it with his life. Shut down onto X1s in a theory. 2 for 1 so far in the favor of bus drivers, but the Baroned up Lotus don't look too scared. Still looking to kick around in the area. 2 carries and a support against the 4-man squad of bus drivers, playing a little dodging minigame here against the Hui. But I don't think too much more is going to come from this.
Yeah, I think honestly, kind of goes back to what we were talking about a little bit. I think Schernfire being a little bit too ambitious, currently kind of in that
little caster curse. That's on me. Sorry, Schernfire.
Yeah, but this is going to be that initial play right after the Baron was taken. We're going to see Geiger with that ultimate over the top, and we're going to see, we're going to see the initial play here with Schernfire, like I was saying, just being completely fearless, diving into that backline with that ultimate available, with Geiger dashing in as well. And I think this is kind of where Lotus's composition has the most success, when they're actually diving forward with the Xin Zhao, with the Kled, over the top, having that extra damage, and then Vayne able to kind of go at the side as well, and basically be kind of with not as much threat on top of her. We kind of saw that last play in particular. We saw, Schernfire kind of being by himself, really just being mispositioned, and then we also saw, Geiger kind of off the side as well to, try to make a play, but really it just wasn't very coordinated. And unfortunately, it ended up not working for them in that fight. But the fight that we just saw on this replay is just kind of goes to show like what their composition should look like in a lot of these fights to come, if they are actively working together, like we have seen them do many times before.
Yeah, you talk about how the Scion buys so much space just with his raw HP and resistances and tankiness, but on the other side for Schernfire, he can just cast his ultimate and be just as tanky just for a few seconds. And if, fight breaking out here. We're in a replay, but live, Geiger's going crazy into the backline. They blow up the Hui. Mohano's going to be the next target. They get that one as well. Kita is going to go down to Schernfire on the backside. It's just going to be a complete wipe from Lotus out of nowhere. They find another fight. They had so many tools available at their disposal, and they get a 5-0.
Yeah, and I think, honestly, with the death timers currently available, if the Scion's not quite able to get this wave, I think Lotus should be able to just kind of push it down in the mid lane, and I think this is going to be game over in the first game of the series. They have no respawn timers, and this, honestly, it goes exactly back to what I was just talking about, right? We talked about how both of these teams, like with the way these teams actually operate, if Schernfire, if Geiger are able to kind of get into the backline, cause a lot of that disruption, ended up making a lot of those plays, they are able to be a lot more successful. And obviously the Arcane Storm over the top from the Victor, able to help them that much more in picking up the first victory of this best of 3, 1 game short for playing for a possible qualification match.
1 game away from punching that ticket to the NA Summer Split Challenger Series qualifying tournament. So big moves here from Lotus in game number 1. And honestly, Orion, it's kind of just the typical Lotus plan, like what we've come to expect from this team. Shogo loses bot lane. Him and Mixture are on the back foot on a scaling pick, but they just trust the rest of the team to come forward and make those mid-game plays. And I gotta say, Geiger especially put a lot of the team on his back with some heavy lifting in this one.
Yeah, definitely played very well in a lot of these team fights alongside Schernfire, causing a lot of that disruption, really making sure that they were the ones causing a lot of that havoc. And typically when you have these like pokey, long-range champions, they don't do very well at people that are on top of them, right? So they like to keep people at arm's length, making sure, kind of like they're playing defense in some ways in terms of a basketball reference. But if you're able to get on top of them and cause a lot of that havoc, that's when things can get very hectic for them. So champions like the Kled, champions like the Xin Zhao can do very well in those type of skirmishes. So congrats to them for kind of piloting that very well. But I also think, Repi and Shogo specifically in a lot of these team fights did very well in terms of navigating their own fights by themselves, because they weren't necessarily getting a ton of peel. It was mostly them kind of playing for themselves, recognizing that they need to be the ones positioning aggressively to do a lot of the damage that they needed to do, and it ended up working out for them.
Yep, I think Reppy especially. Victor's kind of one of those champions where unless he gets like a buttload of kills, you kind of just have him fly under the radar. And he's throwing lasers out. He's doing a ton of damage, but you might not notice him as much, especially with that composition with Geiger and Schönfire being so exciting, diving into the front line and the back line and looking to make those plays. So definitely wouldn't be as successful without Reppy and Shogo in their back pocket, and of course the Melio to enable them for mixture as well. But Lotus once again show a high understanding of how their champions and how their composition wants to be played and can find the best success, and they're able to execute on Summoner's Rift. Well, Ryan, any other shoutouts for game number 1? I'm sure we're just a few minutes away from draft for game number 2, but anything else you'd like to take note of?
No, I think for the side of bus drivers, their composition was right there towards the back end of that game. I think if a couple fights just went a little bit differently, there's possibilities that they could have won that fight. But I think going into game 2, if the drafts are fairly similar, I think they need to do a little bit of a better job recognizing like how the composition of Lotus really likes to play, like kind of creating better flanking wars, recognize that they have the possibility of kind of getting behind them, and trying to prevent that. But obviously they were right there as it was a very competitive game, and I expect the same thing going into game number 2.
Yeah, I think bus drivers got a comp that they were pretty confident with. I think the execution just a little bit better for Lotus there, but they're going to get game number 1. Game number 2 should be on your way shortly, so we'll see you in a couple minutes after this break. Welcome back, everybody. We are jumping right into the draft here for game number 2. Lotus with the game win in game number 1. They're 1 win away, Orion, from finishing this tournament in one of those top 4 spots and punching their ticket to the qualifying tournament for the summer split of the NACL. Bus drivers on the red side here for game number 2. They are fighting to bring this series to a third game. So far, the band's very, very similar to what we saw in game number 1.
Yeah, and I would imagine there probably won't be a lot of deviation from either of these teams to come through, considering that they kind of had a pretty good game plan, really, in terms of both these teams, what they were trying to like assess for both of these teams. So kind of curious to see what the direction kind of Lotus goes in. They typically do kind of prioritize picking a strong early game AD Bruiser for Sternfire. But instead, it ended up going to be the Oriana this time around, possibly. Yep, going to be end up being locked in here, but by Rebby. He has played this before, I believe, in one of their matches. Obviously, typically you see Oriana paired with a very enabling type of champion. Typically nowadays, it's kind of been like that knock wave or whatever what we've seen in the jungle there. But obviously, with that one being banned away, typical combinations that are still available are like Jarvan the Fourth or champions that are really able to kind of create some space to really help her out. But a very common answer into the Oriana is the Akali, one of those champions that is able to kind of stick on top of her. And we kind of saw, like, from Mohano early on in that game, once they kind of started falling behind, Lotus did a really good job of punishing them in that mid lane kind of over and over again for about 3 kills in a row. So I wonder if maybe giving them a champion like they call it, it's a little bit more mobile, a little bit more kind of, instead of laid back like the Ziggs, it would have a lot more pressure early on in this game.
Yeah, definitely should be able to survive in some of those tower dive situations if they find themselves in that spot again. Of course, the Oriana in that mid lane has a little bit of a range advantage, should be able to win out, at least on the trades in the very early stages of the lane. But like you're saying, the Akali has some kill threat. If the Shuriken lands and things like that, especially post level 6, definitely is going to have some pressure to put down onto Oriana and some slipperiness to get away from any ganks from the Lotus. You talked about the Jarvan already here, Orion. Wukong would fit that mold as well. It looks like it will be the Monkey King.
Yeah, I think Wukong is a little bit better into the champions like the Caitlyn, like the Akali, kind of able to really be like a big skirmisher into those champions. Kind of they initially double cyclones, able to over to the top to really make sure that they're able to really cause a lot of havoc. In a lot of these team fights. Curious to see if Lotus is going to round out their top side or if they're going to put a little bit more indication into that bot lane. I would imagine Caitlyn's pairing is probably gonna be something like the Nico, like the Lux, maybe potentially Morgana. But I remember last series I mentioned Draven several times for Mr. Shogo. He's a big Draven player, specifically in solo queue. He made me look like a fool. He never actually picked it, so I was a little sad. But this time I don't talk about Draven, and he picks it anyways. Wow, what a guy!
It's okay, Ryan. I remember you saying it. I'll give you the credit, even if all the viewers didn't hear it last week. But on the other side for bus drivers, looking like a potential jungle lock-in, some early aggression ganking potential being hovered. The Rek'Sai will be the final decision for them.
Yeah, Rek'Sai not only is good in a champion like the Wukong, but it is good in terms of applying, like you said, that early game pressure. His I guess Rek'Sai's tunnel ability does get canceled by Draven's knockback on his E, so that may be a little bit harder to specifically gank him in that bottom side. But Rek'Sai always has a great ability to really connect to a lot of her tunnels and have a lot of early access. Plus, you are able to, anytime Wukong does go invisible, as long as you are burrowed under the ground, you will see where Wukong goes. That's always helpful in certain situations. But we're going to probably most likely see bot lane bans kind of come through. I would imagine 2 AD carries that rely fairly heavily on their specific supports to really enable them to be the aggressive picks they need to be. So we're going to see Nautilus obviously banned away from besides the Lotus. I would imagine probably very similar type of archetype ban went away through here. We've got champions like Leona. You obviously have the Enchanter support still available. Like Nami is still very, very good for a champion like Draven to really empower him to kind of get in those fights through the thick of things. So they have a lot of options available for them, as we do see the Fiora banned away from bus drivers, which actually was picked by the bus drivers in their last series.
Yeah, they did pick that one. I don't know if they got a win with that one, Orion. Maybe we can check in a bit. I'm not sure if we have that info immediately readily available. But yeah, a lot of these enabling, engaging supports coming through on the ban table. Blitzcrank might be the last one from Lotus. What I'm wondering, Orion, is with this Fiora pick, if they just want the Fiora off the table, or if they're tipping their hand a little bit and they're wanting some sort of like heavy CC engaged champ in the top side that wouldn't fare as well into the Fiora.
Hmm.
Something like the Jax, the Gragas, maybe Ornn. I'm not sure exactly,
Yeah.
but could be looking for that kind of style from Geiger.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think it very much fits the mold. They do look to be fairly heavy team fight composition already. So if you say, hey, we don't want to deal with a split pushing champ like the Fiora, if we feel like that's their best option, then go ahead and ban it and kind of getting that one away. I was thinking the Caitlyn pairing was gonna be a champion. Like I said they picked Nico last series when they picked the Caitlyn, but obviously she's a good pairing. Lux obviously another fantastic pairing. Heavy CC chain down there in that bottom side of the map. So curious to see what the actual pairing is going to be here for Lotus. Blitzcrank does allow them to pretty much kind of dictate the pace of the game, both positively and negatively. It is one of those champs where you look like the greatest of all time, or you're a walking cannon minion if things don't go well for you. So especially in the champions like Caitlyn, like Lux, if you're not able to kind of put your foot down early and really kind of control the pace of the lane, they are able to just outrange you, outpoke you, and not really give you much room to breathe down in the bot side. But kind of like what you were saying a little bit here, hovering that top lane tanky champion like the Cassandra, not quite the Ornn that doesn't really fight back super well. Cassandra kind of fits the mold both ways, but gonna end up actually being the Gragas here, really making sure they can kind of split up this team fight nice and easy, and really able to dissect it a little bit easier for the Wukong and the Orianna afterwards from the Gragas.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense with the Wombo combo. A little bit of anti-synergy if they're not careful with the
Yeah.
Gragas, splitting them up for the Shockwave and the Wukong ult and stuff like that. But I'm sure if Geiger is aware, as he should be, it should be totally fine for them. He can even use it to kind of push them together with some good ultimates.
Yeah.
The counter pick on the other side is going to be the
Darn.
Irelia, so they are going for a similar strategy to what you would see out of the Fiora, but it is going to be the Irelia as their champion pickup there.
Yeah, definitely a very skirmish heavy team for the bus drivers. You've got
Yeah.
obviously top side of the map, gonna look to kind of really dictate how early this game really ends up going because all three of them really like to kind of start the game off nice and fast. Besides maybe the Akali, the Akali and the Irelia really need like their first major items to really kind of kick things off for themselves. In Hextech Gunblade or Blade of the Ruin King, respectively, for both those champions. But Rek'Sai can really enable these champions to say, hey, we're going to gank early, we're going to try to cause a lot of havoc on the Rift. And we kind of saw from last game early on was a little slow for the most part, but once at both these teams ended up hitting level 6, things went fairly crazy fairly early. So I can kind of see that happening very similar again. And for this bottom lane, obviously, it's really going to come down to mixture. I think anytime you have a Blitzcrank in the game, like I was saying, you can make a lot of really cool plays and kick people out of position with your hooks and kind of cause a lot of havoc. But if they are just constantly pushed in, like we saw last game, they can be really set up for failure in terms of getting pushed in their wave, having Rek'Sai roam down from the jungle, and have very similar effects as to what we saw last game.
Yeah, I'm curious to see if maybe there's some lane swap potential here. I don't know who's better into what matchup between the Irelia and the Akali, but if they wanted the Irelia
Yeah.
into the Orianna, okay, producers are letting us know that it is the Akali mid. Okay, that makes a lot of sense. Will be Irelia topside against the Gragas.
Yeah,
But yeah,
and
a lot of the focus, Orion, will be on this Blitzcrank.
yeah, and unfortunately too, with Riot doing Riot things, you are stuck in your lanes, with the quests to kind of come
Yeah.
through. So unfortunately, you can kind of roam a little bit if you're everyone but the support. Supports obviously can go wherever they want, but when you've got these role quests or whatever, you're really incentivized to stay in your lanes to really make sure you get those very powerful quests completed. So
Unfortunately, the days of lane swapping are over for the most part for now. At least.
Unfortunately.
I actually, well, I mean, sometimes those games were really cool to watch. Just like they got the chess game happening of both these teams, really trying to posture for positions and how they would navigate the map. It was cool for like 2 weeks. But then it got to the point where literally everybody was doing it every single game, and it's just like, all right, top laners have no farm at 5 minutes in, and they're just walking cannon minions. So, I thought that was dumb. But when teams were innovative, like I like innovation. I like cool ideas. I like people to change things up, which is kind of why I like, bus drivers compositions. It's fairly rare to see like do a composition like Caitlyn Lux down on the bot side. Like, I mean, honestly, in some ways that's outdated, right? It used to be very, very strong, like what, 4 or 5 years ago. And nowadays, people have kind of gone away from that. But like everything, everything kind of comes around, kind of works their way back into metas. And I think both these teams have fairly similar. Not so well. I would say the top half of the map for both these teams are very aggressive. They're going to get in the thick of things and try to be as chaotic in these fights as they possibly can. I think for Lotus, it's going to be very important that they don't, like you said, the dyssynergy between champions like Gragas and Orianna to get mixed up, because you have the Shockwave that likes to pull people in, and you have the Explosive Cast that likes to get the people out. So if they're used at the exact same time, they can cause some interesting display of mechanics to kind of come through in terms of what actually happens to the champions that are being hit by it. But you can obviously have that communication ahead of time. So once again, very important for Lotus to kind of communicate that. But really, I look to bus drivers to really kind of control the early pace of this game. You have champions like Rek'Sai and that really in the Kali that are very, very good early to mid game champions that can really allow this Caitlyn and Lux to have a dominant bot lane over the Draven and the Blitzcrank very early on, and kind of allow them to kind of progress into the mid to late game. But when you look at the composition here for Lotus, I would say one of the things that I really like about them is that if they are able to get ahead in this game, they can very much steamroll, right? You have very easy engage or opportunity engage with the Wukong Orianna, and a champion like Draven that is literally built on snowballing with his passive and the ability to get all that extra gold. He is very much set up for success if they are able to establish kind of an early game connection in this one.
I think both teams have some snowball potential. Early game going to be very, very aggressive from both sides, going to be very important from both sides. I think for Lotus, if you're in a position where you've already won a game in the series and you're going into game number 2, you know that you can suffer a loss and not lose the series. But if you get that snowball going, you're feeling very, very confident to get that second win and close out the series with a 2-0. On the other side for bus drivers, I think this draft in a series they're down a game shows a lot of confidence, right? They've got the Rek'Sai for the early game control. The Lux and the Caitlyn both operate so much better when they're ahead of the curve of the game. And same thing for the Akali and the Aurelia with some snowball prowess on their side as well. So for bus drivers, I think throwing this composition down when they're down a game and in a must-win scenario is showing a lot of confidence. I'm excited to see if they can execute here in game number 2. Lotus, of course, need one more win to punch their ticket to the qualifying tournament. We're going to take a short break, but game number 2 on your screens in no time. We'll see you there. are back for game number 2. Lotus on the blue side, Bus Drivers on the red side. Lotus leads the series 1-0. And Orion, both of these teams looking for a much more aggressive flavor to their compositions here for game number 2.
Yeah, which is kind of funny considering the first death of last game was like a minute into the game. But I mean, we
Yeah.
kind of already see that, Coach Fire dashing very aggressively here onto X1, knowing he has the backup of Gygar there just to make sure, in case anything possibly happened here, as we do see, make sure possibly looking here onto Kita. Ooh, that's big rough.
That is not very good. 0 for 1 on the hook, and half your health bar is gone, unfortunately, for Mixture. Does have a pot, at least one, to try and chug through and help him out a little bit, but this lane is going to be exceptionally volatile and has to burn his flash there already.
Yep, and that's exactly what I spent 2 minutes talking about during the draft phase, where Blitzcrank can either win you the game or not. Unfortunately, missing that second hook there really just allows Kita and Commoneer to really position very aggressively. And honestly, there's nothing really Shogo and Mixture can do about it currently. We do see, obviously, Sternfire is pathing down to really try to make sure he can possibly look for a play here down here. But, I mean, really, with X1 being in the position that they are, I wouldn't be surprised if they do their blue buff and then actually path down into possibly looking to invade early on for the first Sternfire, depending on how they actually have their wave set up. They could keep it simple. They could actually just kind of go to our topside camps, but with how they're currently pathing this blue buff currently, it does look like they are going to go very aggressively down into this Raptor camp.
Just a mid lane gank. They've got vision on Sternfire, and Reppy's pushed up pretty heavily here. He's going to get flashed on, knocked up. Ignite is down. 5-point strike will find its mark on one. The Shuriken, Mohana's going to follow it. Gets the first blood, does get taken out on the backside as well, so it will be Reppy getting the return, but bot side, oh my goodness, Mixture just got sniped.
Yeah, big burst damage there coming through. The initial binding there landing onto Mixture there, not actually having the flash from those early exchanges. Unfortunately, not quite able to really pick up those kills there, but we're going to see a replay here. It was the X1 initially flashing forward there onto Reppy. We're going to see a nice shuriken flip there from Mohana to pick up that first little kill. Unfortunately, did end up dying to that tier 1 tower. We're going to see a nice binding here landed by Commoneer. You're going to see Kita do a great job here, backing off, landing the initial Q, then going for the headshot. I think if he would have went for the headshot first, then the Q, the minions could have possibly gotten in the way of that damage. And Caitlyn's the way the puts over pacemaker works is that she does a lot of damage before she hits anything, and then she does even less damage afterwards. So great job knowing, obviously, the mechanics. There's some of the best players that the North American server really has to offer, and honestly, put on display.
Yep, great job by the bot lane here for Bus Drivers, Kita and Kalmire, making the most of this classic champion duo that we've seen time and time again. And it will be their early kill coming through. Top lane is, as top lane usually is. Geiger's out of mana here, so we tried to run as Confident to step forward and put some auto attacks into the turret, but what he doesn't know is that Sternfire is going to be joining the fray. Just enough mana for that body slam, and Sternfire will make good of that one, getting their second kill and equalizing the kill score 2-2.
Yep, nice well played there, trying to punish the fact that we tried to run was very overextended in the wave. I know that they had the vision there set up. I think the vision may have actually just recently died, but able to kind of go over the back, and like you said, Gragas having just enough mana to really, we're going to secure the body slam here. I think nice dodge out on the stun there. It's possible that I think if that stun does land, double Qs there and extended auto attacks, they may have been able to possibly pick up the kill there, but still, it may have just been a trade of flashes, really, at the end of the day. But still, great kill there by Sternfire, recognizing that he is able to kind of get that initial play happening. But so far, all it really does is, even if that get kill score, we're really seeing the gold lead starting to really get bigger and bigger down here on that bottom side of the map. We're seeing, obviously, this Blitzcrank and this Draven is just not really having a fun time down here in the bottom side of the map. Rek'Sai is kind of hovering. She's not necessarily looking for anything, but possibly looking to see if Sternfire would look for anything, right? Obviously, sometimes the best gank can really just be a counter gank kind of to come through, as we do see Rek'Sai is working her way into the bush, possibly looking for a dive.
Geiger also just walked bot on his recall and then TP'd top, so clearly both teams kind of sniffing out some potential action. Breaking out in the bot side. Churnfire is spotted here. Hook goes wide again from Mixture. Not quite going to be able to find that one. And now under the tower, Shogo's got to be careful. A lot of damage getting put into that health bar, but he will be able to walk away. X1 looking to walk around potentially for a follow-up dive, but Lotus bot lane and jungle able to just kind of limp away as Geiger with the cask in the top side. Turret Edgar not going down onto we tried to run. Now being going to be able to trade back with an ultimate of his own. Geiger gets the flash. He gets the stun. We tried to run. Tries to flash after the turret shot. Oh, he's able to immune it. Very, very close margins here in the top side 1v1.
Yeah, definitely kind of go back and forth there, but still we're starting to see major CS leads being built up here by bus drivers. We're seeing plus 20 in the top lane, plus 20 in the bottom lane, and also the gold lead is starting to reflect that. Almost 1.5 thousand gold lead here already, only 6 minutes in for bus driver, as well as picking up an early Infernal Drake. You know, typically when you see, you know, lane dominant bot lanes like the Caitlyn, like the Lux this early on to the game, you like to see those early objectives being the ones that are early protected. Oh, yep, mid lane play.
Mixture is here. Shroud goes down. Kalmire, of course, on the roam here as well. So both supports trying to get involved in the action in the mid lane, but it is just going to be Reppy using that pressure to get the push out and try to get a recall here on the Orianna.
Yeah, typically like this early on into the game, there's not really a ton like in terms of Orianna unless she's actively making a play with the Wukong. Like you don't necessarily have to have your ultimate always readily available. Make sure you're looking for a hook.
Goes wide. Kalmire able to sidestep that one once again. Shogo looking for an aggressive trade here with Kita, knowing that Kalmire is out of range, is going to be able to get a few axes thrown down and be looking pretty good there.
Yeah, now that they have
Howdy,
access
Road
to
Runner.
the vamp
You're
structure, they
very
are a little bit
fast.
Well,
sneakier to
I
kind of
drink
come
Red
through
Bull.
this mixture. Oh, actually, let me hook you out.
But you do
We've got a fun
realize
ad break on your
Yes,
screen,
Red
but
Bull
Mixture
gives you
does land the hook
wings,
onto Kita.
but I'm scared of
Shogo
heights.
not able to finish the kill off with the flash barriers and
Red
gets
Bull
out,
gives you
so two summoner spells
wings.
down.
The new Red Bull Summer Edition, with the taste of Sudachi lime.
Yeah, unfortunately,
Wings for your summer.
Able to really get that kill there on the back end, but the ultimate wasn't able to come through for Shogo. As we do see X1 looking for his potential gank here, he is completely alone.
Shogo a little bit overly aggressive here. X1 does have flash to follow the flash of Shogo. The root's going to land for Kalmire as well. No mana on this Draven, and 2 versus 1 is going to spell his demise. Shogo a little bit greedy on the overstay, will get punished by the bus driver's jungler.
Yeah, unfortunately, with no help from Mixture or Schernfire in the area, wasn't really able to survive. You know, smartly not choosing to use the barrier there, as they were dead regardless of however that situation ended up playing out. But it is one of those things where I think, you know, for the side of Lotus, that they still obviously have ways of getting obviously back into this game. They have tons of all-in potential, and really anytime you have a Blitzcrank in the game, he really kind of switches up the game very
Speaking
massively.
of
As
Orion,
Mixture.
Gonna land the rocket grab into the punch, or vice versa. Kita could be in trouble here. No flash, no barrier.
that's-
Can they finish it off? Flashing forward to Schernfire, but he's gonna get rooted up by the Lux as he does so. They're trying to give it to Shogo, and he's able to just barely get in range and pick up that one on the Draven. Ultimates exchange here in the top side as well, as Geiger now running for the hills. Chugs a cask, looks for the body slam, gets some damage down. We tried to run.
Can he
still has
cut
the
it out?
passes Backed up. A directed camera is completely trolling us, as Geiger is just gonna kind of hide in the alcove here. Neither top laner prepared to continue this fight. They're just gonna stand and stare at each other. Geiger.
Yeah, I mean, maybe. I think as long as Aurelia has that passive, there's just not so much he can do. He does. Aurelia should have the mana if she wants to use her stun ability, but just gonna end up walking that one out. Honestly, I thought when Schernfire stepped on that initial trap after he W'd, I was like, oh man, she may actually end up surviving with coming near, able to kind of go over the top there. But nice play by them to make sure they're able to kind of secure the kill there. I think we are gonna get a possible replay here, kind of coming through at some point of that last little bitty play. But, you know, honestly, Lotus, once again, doing a good job of initially surviving. This is going to be that initial play we're talking about. No support, no jungler around in the area. Shogo, for some reason, using his flash, even though he had never had any chance of surviving this situation, ends up falling here. instead of kind of paying the price. X1, pretty appropriate emote there, I would say. I love emotes personally. I think they're so funny. But
Orion Toxic confirmed.
I know. I love the Silas thumbs down emote. It's so awesome. But this is gonna be that initial play we saw. From here, we're gonna see we missed the initial bot lane play from the Wukong, but this is with Gygar living just barely enough HP here. We saw the Storm Raider surge there, a little bit different than Face Rush as we've seen in years past, but able to do just enough damage to kind of proc that one, and able to use the alcove, to getting out off
Mixture in the picture-in-picture lands a hook. Kalmire has to flash over the wall to get out alive, but now X1 is here. Shogu could be in trouble. The Cyclone coming out from Coach Fire as he tries to trade down here onto the enemy Rek'Sai. Gonna be able to get the damage down and get the shutdown for himself. 2-0 on the Wukong. Oh, the final spark will claim Mixture's life as topside Geiger. What are you doing over here, buddy? Is this the Baus FFS?
Oh, he's TPing.
His ultimate TP is out. He will be able to make it home without going down, but more importantly, the bot side fight goes in the favor of Lotus.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing there was the fact that obviously barely off picture, we saw Mixture able to take up a lot of that damage to come through, but Surnfire already having completed that Triforce was the biggest difference there. We only saw just the initial part of the Tiamat there for the Titanic Hydra on X1, so not quite able to really pick up that kill there on the initial play, but Surnfire able to kind of get that initial chase down to really able to secure the kill there. And really, if you take away the rest of the map besides actually Reppy, gonna end up
hook over the wall. That's a flashless Lux right into the waiting arms of the rest of Lotus. It is going to be the Blitzcrank taking it out with his ultimate as we tried to run. Roy joins the fray. We got a little bit of a split fight here as X1 and Mohana look to chase down in the jungler. They do take out Surnfire. Reppy had to burn his flash on the other side to get away from We tried to run as he tried to flank through the top side of the mid lane. And a couple of members down on either side.
Yeah, this is going to result in the second dragon of the game going the way of Bus Drivers, though, as we do see we tried to run, possibly looking for a play here, but we're going to see a little bit of a picture-in-picture here. We're going to try to keep slight tabs on what's actually happening in that top lane, but here's going to be that initial hook landing onto Commoneer. Great play by Mixture, able to kind of get that initial one. Does have to use his ultimate to secure the kill. Unfortunately, that doesn't end up going his way, but we see Reppy obviously having to use his flash or to get away from which had to run, but Surnfire not actively having his Cyclone ability means he's not quite able to get away. So you see Mixture possibly looking for a play down bot lane.
Yeah, picture-in-picture, Shogu is in trouble. Mixture trying to provide some space for his Draven, but 3 versus 2, there ain't no hope in the world for Shogo. Mixture will fall here following. And nice gank from X1 into the bot side using the flash and the ultimate there from the Rex side to secure a couple kills.
Yeah, make sure that Mohano did end up using the first part of Macaulay's ultimate there, perfect execution, try to make a play there, but this Orianna is a tankier version of Orianna. It is Rod of Aegis, so they do actually have access to higher amounts of HP. I do actually kind of like this game because it actually allows them to be a little bit more durable in terms of how these fights are going to end up playing out. As this is going to be the initial replay here from Shogo. We see X1 going to end up making the initial play. I think Mixture does a pretty decent job at actually peeling for Shogo, but Rek'Sai is a very sticky champion. Not only do they have their initial dash, but the ultimate over the top as well to really secure getting on top of Shogo, and really just no place to run, unfortunately, with being that deep into the alcove, and then Keto obviously able to kind of pick up the kill there onto Mixture. Bus Driver's doing a really good job of making sure that their AD carrier is able to secure that kill there, kind of going with that play.
I flick over to the gold here just to take a look at how things have kind of come to fruition now. It's actually Reppy getting engaged on, but we tried
Surnfire's here though.
Surnfire in his back pocket, going to come forward. It's the Shockwave and the Cyclone used. We tried to run, can't quite get through the wall with his flash, and will fall down for the second time in this game.
Yeah, chose to flash over the thick part of the wall there. Unfortunately, ended up paying the price for it. But I think he was probably dead either way. But Surnfire obviously has the flash to go over the wall as well as their own dashing ability with their invulnerability kind of to come through. But nice little pick there. I think, obviously we tried to run, maybe not necessarily knowing exactly where this Wukong was to really make sure they could pick up that play, but turret plates and a little bit of extra gold going in the hands of Lotus. We're going to see the initial stun here doesn't have landed by we tried to run, and I think this is obviously, if this is just a 1-for-1, the Aurelia obviously does end up winning this, but a nice Shockwave from Reppy to make sure we should have run able to miss their ultimate there, and flashing over a big part of the wall there is never going to work, unfortunately.
Yep. I think Reppy would only be in that position if he had Schernfire in his back pocket. So, you know, playing a little bit of the bait for a retry to run. Rift Herald has been started up by the side of Bus Drivers. The hook is going to land here. Silence. Kalmire could be in trouble. Does have to flash away, but the ultimate from Draven is going to take him out as Shogu claims the kill. X1 now is in trouble. It's a double kill for the Draven, and Shogu's going to keep pressing forward. That's a body slam. That's a kill. Shogo doesn't get this one, but Lotus get 3 kills, and they claim the Rift Herald for themselves.
Yeah, very aggressive team fight forward, and honestly, I think it was one of those things where it was just really aggressively posturing from Commoneer here, so right in the face of Mixture here. But honestly, just being a little bit disrespectful, trying to clear that ward in his face. I know he hadn't hit a ton of hooks this game, but you still obviously have to play with that threat possibly in mind there. Great Draven ultimate over the top. Geigar able to land that body slam as well to make sure X1 not quite able to get away. And Draven, even though doesn't quite have a ton of passive stacks, still able to get nice shutdowns there from him. Able to get a lot of that extra gold. And Geigar able to finish the kill there from Kita. And
alive,
once
another
again,
hook lands.
actually back alive.
Mixture does have to flash away. The more members of Bus Drivers are in the area, they are going to use the ultimate forward from X1 to take out that kill, but Geiger could be on the flank there. Coach Fire goes forward with the Cyclone, and now they're into the fray. They're going to just destroy them one after the other. Shogu can take his pick, and Shogu will pick to kill them all. 3 dead on the side of Bus Drivers as Lotus have just turned this game on its head.
Yeah, it's getting from bad to worse here. It's also, it's kind of what we were talking about a little bit, where I said if Lotus is actually able to kind of get things going, they definitely have a very snowbally composition. You have champions like Draven, like Blitzcrank that can really kind of pick up the pace of this game quite quickly. Just kind of considering how these champions end up working. We see Rek'Sai ultimate over the top, trying to pick up the kill there onto Mixture. Fantastic knockup here to kind of buy some space. We see Shogo trying to look for a place here, but Kita aggressively dashing over the wall with no flash, by the way. So once they're over that wall, they're not getting back over. So I don't think recognizing that the rest of Lotus's members are able to kind of be there in this fight as well. So a little bit optimistic there for Kita. Unfortunately, ended up paying the price for it, and all of a sudden Lotus getting higher and higher gold leads.
Kita did that a couple of times in game one of those fights in the mid lane in particular, where he shifted forward to then have to flash out. So yeah, maybe getting a little too wild turtle with it in these games so far for Kita, but hoping to, you know, still be able to solidify on this. Caitlyn has died a couple of times. The lead now no longer in his favor, and it's going to be the first dragon of the game picked up in the bot side here for Schernfire and Lotus, as they at least stop the stacking on the other side.
Yeah, definitely a good job. Obviously stabilizing the game a little bit there. Obviously, you know, the one way Bus Drivers were kind of able to kind of get their way back into the game was the fact they already had the 2 dragons already. And the 3rd dragon obviously would be Soul Point, but, you know, great job by Lotus saying, hey, we want to stop that from actually ever happening and kind of get one for themselves. So, you know, this Commoneer is being very aggressive this entire game. He is posturing all the time, trying to make sure he's able to kind of really look for these plays. But I think he has to remember that he is still just playing a Lux. With no stasis abilities whatsoever. As we do see a mid lane push happening here. Shogo, big flash on.
Oh my goodness, he's just dead before he can even react. Victor does get the pull under towers. Mohana's looking for the chase down. The perfect execution will get it, but the turret has been ramped up, and Mohana will die to the tower on the backside. Aggressive force here from the Bus Drivers as they do claim both members of the bot lane of Lotus, but now they could be caught between a rock and a Schernfire. He's trying to use his ulti. He will just barely get it off before he dies, but just falls before he can do much else. Geiger and Reppy now are on the run as this bot side jungle is just owned by Bus Drivers. They find their moment in the mid lane, and they get a follow-up kill in the jungle as well.
Yeah, I think, honestly, like, for the side of Bus Drivers, they really just said, hey, what happens if we just all group mid, basically play ARAM, and just use all of our extra members to really make sure we're able to kind of get in the area to play for the fights. Hopefully going to get a replay of that one kind of to come through, as we do see we're having some slight technical difficulties with our stream currently. But we do see, here's going to be the initial play. We're going to see, like I said, all 5 members of Bus Drivers are going to all show up here. It's going to be X1 initially starting up the fight, flashing forward, landing that knockup, and the rest of the members can get right over the top, immediately blasting.
Can't even use flash
Shogo.
or barrier.
Yeah, there wasn't really anything Shogo could really do, unfortunately. But then we see the rest of Lotus saying, hey, they used a lot of their tools. We can possibly maybe even look for this play, but fantastic CC chain here onto Schernfire, able to knock him up, layer all of that CC to come through. And and he wasn't really actually able to really press any of his buttons there.
Yeah, got the Cyclone off in desperation, but by then he was already dead, and the rest of the team weren't anywhere close enough to try and follow up on it. And we'll see if we can get the stream fixed here for you guys shortly, but Schernfire looking for a bit of an invade here. I don't know if he's allowed to be here. Have Schernfire go down in the top side, red side jungle of Bus Drivers. So try to let you guys know what's going on, despite the fact that you're forced to see an ad right now. But Schernfire is dead, and the Baron is being started up by Bus Drivers.
Drinks aren't new at McDonald's. Coffee? Until they are.
Landed on our side here as
All
well,
new
so we'll
drinks
be
are
back with you
here.
shortly. Baron was started up. Tense moment in the game here for both teams, Orion.
Oh man, this is so unfortunate because like you're saying, this is like really close, and all of a sudden, wait, what? Okay, now we're looking at CLG Jack. Oh. Okay, here we go. So I believe this is, where are we? So
Yeah, we'll reorient here.
yeah, we are a little bit behind, I think, where we originally was. We did have to unfortunately stop our observing team, but we do obviously have Lotus still in, like, well, I don't want to say control, but it is, they still have the goalie, they're still able to actively make a lot of these plays happen. Mid tier 1 tower, obviously under threat by Lotus, and really, I think Bus Drivers have done a pretty decent job of making sure that we are kind of getting back into this game, making sure that they're able to really kind of make plays happen.
Yeah, so okay, this is the play we were talking about just as we kind of cut out on the stream. Schernfire aggressively looking for an invade here, but doesn't really have backup in the area. Maybe just a slight overextension, not realizing exactly how quickly the rest of the Bus Drivers could collapse, and with him just going down, they immediately turn their attention towards the Baron. We don't fully know what happened in this fight, so we'll just take it from here. X1 fearlessly starting it up, waiting for the team to collapse. Lotus know this is happening, or at least they have a feeling, but 4 versus 5, don't know if they'll even risk a fight.
Yeah, it's going to be hard to really... Actually, make sure,
make
touch
sure.
the board.
Flash on the other side from Kalmeyer as he tries to evacuate. That's a really nice cast from Geiger trying to split them up and stop them from getting the engage. Shockwave
6K.
burned here as well. Kalmeyer is low. Going forward is Lotus. Reppy gets stunned up. Going to eat this final spark. Baron goes down. Now they're trying to get out of the pit. X1 over the wall. We tried to run. Is trying to run, but won't be able to as he gets taken out by Mixture. So 1 for 0, but the Baron has claimed the chase down here from Lotus. Speed up from Reppy. You're going to walk him right into a Lux binding, though.
Mixture
over the wall. Just barely misses Kita with that rocket grab, so they're only able to secure 1 on the fight. Baron claimed from the Bus Drivers.
Oh, dang. Honestly, if you're Lotus, you would have really liked to have taken a lot of members down there, because considering the fact that multiple members from Bus Drivers are still currently standing up and available from that fight, but blinking health bars from the side of Bus Drivers, they're unfortunately not able to really secure the kills there to really kind of make sure that things are kind of basically back the way that normally things, but it is what Mixture is looking for a hook again.
Does land it. Silence down onto Kalmeyer. The Lux doesn't have
Schernfire
flash anymore, and Schernfire will get the flank and finish off the kill. TPing into the fight is we tried to run, but it's just going to have to get there and use the home guard buff to leave the premises. Lotus now with priority in the mid lane are going to look to put some damage here into the tier 2. Shogo throwing the axes, getting the chip damage down. Mohano stepping forward, looking to try and find some sort of defense, but they don't really have much to amount here. X1 waiting in the wings. Has a potential flank if he can find it. Waiting on the flash cooldown, which is up in just a couple of seconds. Turret goes down. Lotus looking to leave. Dragon on the map. Maybe looking for a bush cheese here. Fire going forward. We try to run is going to be the target.
Nice
They get the
hook.
knock-up, they get the pull down, the stun, and so much CC into so much damage as Fire finishes off the kill with the staff. X1 still looking for a flank, but these picks from Lotus just make it so hard for bus drivers to find any way into this fight. Geiger over the wall, fiercely stepping forward. The cask is going to find the knock-up, but Kita goes flashing into the wall. Shockwave as well! And Shogo puts an axe into the Caitlyn to finish him off. Another dive under the towers. Kamar's going to land. Oh, Mixture with the hook as well. They want them all. They're stepping forward under the tier 3 tower. Reppy tanks it up for the team, and they are just able to wipe them. 4 men down for bus drivers. Mohano stands alone, 10 seconds on the Aurelia, as it's bus drivers wearing purple, but it's Lotus pushing into the base here. They break down this middle tower. They don't want to overstay for the inhibitor. Dragon's still on the map. They want to try and get their resets here and not lose too much tempo, but my goodness, every time we think bus drivers are being let back into this game just a little bit, Lotus slam the door shut again.
Yeah, and honestly, I think a lot of that had to play off the back of, obviously, they had very good vision setup and making sure that they were actually able to really posture in that kind of pocket to where they never really knew exactly what Lotus was going for. I know bus drivers were trying to look for flanks, trying to look for ways possibly behind, but Lotus kept saying, hey, if you're going to walk at us with 1 to 2 members, we're just going to end up taking a fight off the back of that play. So Mixture gonna get a lot of damage here.
Yeah,
oh my
that's a lot of CC. That's what a Caitlyn Lux will do to you, and Mixture is just absolutely dead. Geiger has the body slam to get to safety. The Shuriken just barely whiffing. Fire on the side. Dragon's still on the map. Neither team have been able to get that one just yet, but with the Blitzcrank in the Death Chamber, bus drivers feeling confident enough to start this one up. Fire maybe just looking for a trade kill here onto Kalmire. Dragon does go down. Looking for the engage in the river, rooted up by the trap, rooted up by the Lux binding as well.
I guess TPing.
Gragas TP into the backside. Can he find the flank here? Oh my goodness, they get the knock up into the barrel. Kita just gets absolutely destroyed by the top laner and the jungler of Lotus. And now with the health bars a little bit low and some tools and mana bars looking low as well, they're just going to look to push another tower here. So much standing gold that Lotus are able to pick up in these last few minutes, Orion.
Yeah, they've absolutely blossomed the gold lead here. Obviously, already have 5,000 gold lead. Sternfire looking to even take even more camps, more gold away from the side of bus drivers. And yeah, like you said, I think they did a really good job of making sure that they're using their skirmishy type composition quite well. I mean, obviously, there's been a couple picks here and there from bus drivers able to kind of get a couple of kills, but really, I mean, it's been Lotus in really dictating a lot of how a lot of these fights are actually being done. Right? You see. Oftentimes it's either Mixture landing a nice hook, or the last couple of fights we saw a great Shockwave and great explosive cast coming through from Geigar and Reppy exclusively, right? Or, yeah, I guess that's that word. I think also, for both these teams, right? Obviously Baron is the next major objective to come through. Bus Drivers was able to pick up that 3rd dragon of the game, so if they are able to get the obviously the 4th dragon of the game, that will be their soul kind of to come through. Obviously, it is Kimtech dragon. It isn't necessarily anything that's like fantastic, unfortunately, but it is still a soul dragon nonetheless. It is obviously better to have than to not have. But it is still 3 minutes away, so I think they will have to do a pretty good job of making sure trying to stall out of what Lotus is trying to do here. Baron obviously spawning in 40 seconds. You see good job here by Mixture, able to place those 2 wards in that red side area to make sure that they have the proper vision set up to make sure that any possible plays that Lotus would be able to kind of go for, or sorry, that bus drivers would be able to go for. As we do see, just from the side of Lotus, they are kind of posturing. Dark. Yeah, they are posturing very aggressively up in the top side to prevent any vision to come through. Geigar gonna try and do his best to really kind of stall out the possible split push here from We Try to Run. He does need to be very careful, though. He is obviously 1v2. X1 trying to look for that possible play here, but unfortunately just not really quite able to do it. Geigar is very tanky, even though it is a Gragas with a lot of AP, as Baron buff is being started up.
Oh, and they just land the pull into Mohana. So much damage! And Mixture has been getting better and better with these Blitzcrank hooks as the game goes on. X1 into the fray. Gonna have to back up just a little
Okay,
bit. Lotus. Oh, here goes. We tried to run into the backside, but the flank is on the other side as well. Super messy team fight as it just breaks out completely. Double kill for Shogo as they keep pressing forward. We tried to run is dead. Mohano, of course, dead. Kita and Kowmeyer were short to follow, and now they don't even care about the Baron. The Blast Cone barely gets X1 away from the rocket grab, but Lotus, they think they can just end the game right here. They've got a couple minions in the mid lane, 4 in the Death Chamber. Mohano spawning in about 12 seconds. This is it, Orion. They're pushing for the win, for their berth in the qualifying tournament for the North American Challenger Series. X1 stands alone, still 4 seconds. He's gonna get pulled, he's gonna get stunned, he's gonna get knocked up, he's gonna get aced, and Lotus will do it. They'll even claim one more as Mohana will go invisible for a second. The perfect execution, actually, almost doing some damage, but Lotus with the game victory, with the series victory, and they will complete their run here in the open qualifiers. 5-0, Orion, they are undefeated.
Yeah, congratulations. And like you said, completely undefeated. They didn't even drop a singular game this entire tournament. So impressive stuff for Lotus. And really, I think obviously the early parts of this game, there were some doubts. All of a sudden, like, gigantic Caitlyn lead. I really was up 25 CS, and they were very dominant early on from bus drivers. But really, I mean, honestly, like you said in the first game, Lotus, they just rode the wave. They said, all right, we're gonna fall behind early. We're gonna win a couple of team fights, and we're gonna win the game. It just kind of seems to be their MO, really. Unfortunately, I think it just kind of works. So why not? If it's not broken, don't fix it. But I think the biggest thing for me was the way they played a lot of these team fights. We noticed that obviously Wukong going aggressively forward with the shockwave over the top, and then really just the layering of the CC from them was very hard for bus drivers to be able to handle in a lot of these situations. And even though they were able to do look, there was a couple moments where they had a slight bit of dyssynergy. I think the last fight actually played it out nicely. We saw the explosive cask over the top, really separating the Caitlyn from the rest of her team, and then the Blitzcrank hook was basically almost guaranteed at that point because it pinned her against the wall with the Blitzcrank hook over the top, and really able to make sure they were able to pick up that kill there on the Caitlyn.
Yep, definitely a fantastic run from Lotus from start to finish. It was a pleasure to be here and witness it, Orion. So big congratulations to them. They will be playing in the qualifying tournament for the summer split in the NACL. So best of luck to them in that tournament as well. The competition only gets more fierce from here on out. So hopefully, I don't think we'll be streaming those games, but of course you can catch them on the official NACL Twitch and continue tracking Lotus as they try to make their way into the NACL itself. It's very, very fun, Orion, to see kind of more like grassroots esports, kind of vibes coming through with some of the changes that Riot have made to the competitive scene. So big congratulations to Lotus. I think from start to finish throughout the tournament, they showed a lot of promise. And Orion, I think the overarching theme, is experience and composure, right? They fell behind in, I want to say, almost every single game. Like their early game didn't go great. They were behind a couple thousand gold here and there. And I don't want to say that's part of their game plan, but it's almost like their comfort zone, right? They're able to just remain composed, still understand how their composition functions, what they need to do to execute even at a small deficit. And throughout the tournament, we're able to do exactly that.
Yeah, I think obviously we speak to the experience. Most of these guys have been playing on competitive teams for almost 5 to 6 years. You've got a guy like Schernfire that's been playing, since the dawn of time of League of Legends. So, obviously, you got players like that that definitely know what it takes to win a League of Legends game, even from behind. Is definitely a admirable characteristic to have. A lot of teams that that may be put with younger guys, like, even though they may be just as skilled, if you end up having moments where you do end up falling behind, all of a sudden those games are hard to kind of come back from. But ultimately, Lotus, even though they did it, like you were saying, they were kind of able to come behind. They always found ways to get back into the game. And then once they got into the game and were ahead of the game, there wasn't really much stopping them. They recognized what their win conditions were. They recognized how they should end up playing the game, and very carefully played those executions out, and were some major reasons why they're able to pick up victories.
Yep, I think from top to bottom, the Lotus roster showed a lot of promise here today as well as last week, as we saw a lot of their games on stream there as well. It was a real pleasure, Orion, to cast
Yeah.
with you and to watch these games. Some high level League of Legends on display from Lotus and from the teams they played. Honestly, like Lotus looked fantastic, but you have to remember the teams they're playing are very, very good in their own right, which really just elevates that performance even higher for the Lotus squad. So, yeah, I think that's pretty much it for us here today. Obviously, we're not going to see any more games from Lotus. They've made it through. They don't have to play in the losers bracket whatsoever. So this is going to be the final stream for us here at the Open Qualifiers. Orion, any last words for the viewers before we sign off for the afternoon?
I mean, congratulations to Lotus. I know they, spent a lot of time. They've been working really hard. So, just congratulations.
Awesome. Well, it's been a pleasure, Orion. From everyone here at the CCS, from Lotus, from our fantastic production crew here today, thank you so much for joining us today and last weekend for the North American Challenger League Open Qualifiers. It has been an absolute blast to watch Lotus go undefeated through the entire bracket and book their ticket into that qualifying tournament. Hopefully we can watch them on NACL and see how they do. Maybe we'll get to even see them in the summer split for the NACL League. But until next time, thank you so much for joining us here today. This is Lindor and Orion signing off. We'll see you later.